So when we're in there, what'll happen is you'll connect to the SMB server. It'll upload a reverse shell. It'll connect to the reverse shell, and then it'll delete it for you. So some programs do cover your tracks for you, but you don't want to leave malware behind or any information that you have been there behind. That includes if you're pen testing, really not important on that aspect, like deleting logs. But if you're a red teamer or an APT, you're definitely going to be trying to cover your tracks. So thank you for the donation, Bammers. I appreciate that, Brent. $101, that's a lot. Thank you so much. And Rory says, PS exec's very loud. Don't be fooled. This is true. Depends on who you're going up against. Most SIMs won't detect it. I should say most environments. I shouldn't say most SIMs. Most environments don't detect it because they don't either have their SIM tuned correctly or they're not running a SIM at all. So that's really it. It's more of a cyclical cycle, right? You sometimes when you view this chart, you see it in a 1 to 5 in a circle, but you go through these steps when you're doing an engagement or doing any sort of hacking. So it's important that we go in order and then talk about these things. So today we're going to be talking about passive recon. And I'm breaking it down into a couple different types here. And I'm not going to do death by PowerPoint the whole time. Basically, what I want to talk about is, let's talk about physical and social first. So if I'm doing recon for physical or social, some things I might want to look at. So maybe satellite images, right? Or I have a coworker who does great physical work, and he actually has a drone that he flies out and around the building to look at the building layout. And that's another thing, right? Building layout. So with these, you want to know where the badge readers are, where the break areas are, what the security looks like, what type of fencing there is. Are people leaving doors open? What kind of information can you get about the location? So you want to know what areas you might want to hit hard and where to attack the weak points. So, you're probably not going through the front door. Sometimes you have to go through the front door when you're doing a physical. But a lot of times you don't have to do that at all. There's a lot of sneakier ways, cloning badges, a lot of things you could do. Social engineering, go by the smoke area and chat somebody up and then just have them hold the door for you. Tailgating, everything. You want to know your building layout and location information as best as possible. Also going into a social aspect, and this starts to become important for not just physical, but when you're starting to do host assessments and web assessments as well. So we're interested in job information, right? Like who the employees are, what's their name, what's their job title, what's their phone number, who's their manager. You want to try to build out some sort of, topology for employees. You got to figure out who you're going to target. Like today, I was doing a debrief on a client that we had, and they had on the public web their help desk portal, but their help desk portal listed every single name of their help desk employees, and there's about 10 of them. That's just, it's not an exploit, but that's really good information for me if I want to call another employee and say, hey, I'm Joe from help desk. And Robert's my manager or whoever, and you try to impersonate somebody. So as much information as you can gather and what field they're in, what they do, you want to try to map out as much as possible. You should know who the VPs are, who the CEO is, etc. You don't want to, say the wrong name to the wrong person and ruin everything, especially if you're on a physical engagement or a social engineering engagement. That also includes pictures. So one thing that we look for when we're doing physical engagements is we'll find who the employees are, and then we'll look them up on Twitter, we'll look them up on Facebook, we'll look them up on LinkedIn, and you will not believe how many times they have their badge in a picture, their desk in a picture, computer photos. I mean, there's so much information that we can find. If you've got a badge photo, okay, we know how to clone an image of your badge, right? If you've got a desk photo, what are we looking at? Well, we can be able to see what the letterhead is. Perhaps if you've got some letterhead on your desk or like a company calendar We're just trying to look for logos, design, anything that we can use to make a fake badge if we need to. And computer photos. I've come across plenty of computer photos that show what kind of software you're running. You're going to tell me what kind of Outlook, if you're using, like I've seen some Slack channels information, a lot of things that people don't think about, right? Like I've seen accounting information on a photo posted on Twitter before because somebody took a photo of their desk. People are the weakest link. They'll always be the weakest link. You could have the strongest barriers possible and it won't matter, right? I mean, so a lot of this is employee training and et cetera, but this is the kind of information that we are after. And a lot of people are talking about badge cloning. So we use a tool. It was about $2,000. It's called Boss Cloner. Basically, you can build it yourself for about $500. It gives you all the instructions, but if you want it built for you, it's $2,000. It doesn't work with every type of RFID, but if you get close enough, you can pretty much capture an RFID and then use that to gain entry. So it's very, very easy. We're not going to go into the physical side of things and how to hack doors and all that stuff. I have a really good coworker who I would love to bring in for that, and maybe I will get him to bring in. He is by far the best physical pen tester I've come across. So if we do a physical lesson later on down the road, I think I would definitely bring him in. So when we come across, so let's say the passive recon for the web and the host, well, we need to do a couple things as well. So we got to do target validation, right? We can do that with Whois, NSLookup, DNS Recon. There's a ton of tools. Basically, we need to verify that the IP space or the host or whatever that they give us is indeed their ownership. A lot of times you're going to get a subnet or, just an IP range, and they'll include the router for the ISP in there or something like that that's not theirs, doesn't belong to them, and you shouldn't be scanning or pen testing against it. So it's important that you look up the website that they give you and make sure that they own it, that they didn't make a typo or any sort of information like that. So, but also for recon terms, Whois is useful. Sometimes they don't put a protected, owner in there. They'll put their own owner. Sometimes it's not private. So you might be able to get owner information with address, etc. Mostly everybody goes the private route, but some people don't. NSLookup, DNS Recon, we use these tools for a lot of things. Finding subdomains is important as well. So you could just do some Google foo. We could use Dig, Nmap, Sublister, Bluto, crt.sh, etc. There's a ton of tools for that we can do, but finding subdomains helps us out as well, just to find a little bit more information about the site. Maybe we'll find something like a dev.google.com or something along those lines. Like whatever site we're looking for, maybe they have a dev environment they didn't want us to know about, and we'll find that information online. Same thing with fingerprinting. And fingerprinting, I'm kind of iffy on because I kind of call it active recon because you're going to the website itself with a lot of this. So Nmap, it's definitely active recon because we're going to scan against it. Wapalizer is a tool that we use to see what they're running. Basically, with fingerprinting, we're trying to see what type of tools or backend that website or host is using. Typically, this is for a website, but we want to know, what type of software might be running. So WhatWeb is good for that. BuiltWith is good for that. Even using Netcat to get the headers of the site might tell you some information. So being able to fingerprint a host, it falls under passive/active, I would call it. You can do a little bit of both. So it depends on what you do to make it passive or active here. And then lastly, data breaches. So have I been pwned or similar lists? So tools that we have covered here, like Bluto itself or the Harvester, some of these will check through. I don't know if the Harvester does actually. Some of these will check through lists to see if there have been credentials found for that domain in Have I Been Pwned. But we're going to talk about this a little bit heavy here, and then in a later lesson when we get into hacking. So tonight, I'm going to show you a script that I wrote in Bash. And what we'll do is, basically what it does is run through a clear text password list to try to find passwords through for a domain that we supply. So we'll see how that works and how we can use it and think about how we can use it. So plenty more tools than what I noted here, and we'll cover some of these. We'll cover not all of these, and we'll just go as we go. So lastly, before we get started, like I just said, there are a lot of OSINT tools. Please don't hate me if we don't cover them all. I know you guys know a ton about OSINT tools, I'm sure, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them. I don't even know half of them probably. There's so many cool little things out there that I'm sure are helpful. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I know, how I would do it on an assessment, and what we're actually going to do tonight is we are going to go through a client of our choice. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to BugCrowd. We're going to pick out some clients that might interest us. What I want to do is I want to pick something that may be medium to smaller size. I don't want like a large client because that's just going to take too long to dig through. I want something that we can gather a lot of information on in a short period of time. So we'll throw out some names or companies, and then we'll try to do OSINT on them. No, you can't pick me, but you're welcome to OSINT me. You guys have already been doing that today, so you're welcome to continue doing that. But the goal here today, too, is we're going to do this collectively as a group. I'm going to show you some of the things that we can look for and that we can do. But at the same time, I want you guys to be looking on your own and then posting some information in the chat. That way we have that information and we can kind of collectively do this as a group. So what we're going to do is if you go to bugcrowd.com and you do the programs, if you do programs up here, basically what we're going to do is we're going to pick one out of here that we want to do. So I would pick something on the smaller side if we had that choice. But we can pick something on the medium to smaller size if we can. So if you see anything in here that is of interest, we can do it. Or what we can do is, I was messing around with Tesla before per Davy's recommendation. Actually, we can do Tesla. But any of these would be pretty good clients here. Tesla sounds good. We can do Tesla if you guys want. Pinterest. We're not getting I need 2 votes for one thing, and then we'll call it. How about that? But we're taking the DoD out of this. Davy's being cheeky. Tesla. You guys want to do Tesla? Okay, we'll do Tesla. All right, so you guys are going to do your own OSINT while I do OSINT as well, but I'm going to show you, follow along, see if you come up with anything interesting that I don't come up with. So a few things. One I've already got up here. If we look, so if you want to go create an account, go to hunter.io. Basically, this will tell us, we just enter a domain name and it'll search through email addresses and try to find people with that email address. I think you get like 20 free searches a month or something like that. If we go into pricing, you get 20 free a month. That's plenty for what we're doing tonight. You can also use an API key with the Harvester on this and some other tools. I think Bluto has it now too, where you can use hunter.io. And use one of these API keys. So we'll go back, and what we're looking for is just information here. So let's search tesla.com. And what we're doing is we're looking at what type of pattern do they have, right? So we got the most common pattern, first, last, at tesla.com. And if we scroll through, it looks like we got 344 results. We can export this to a CSV.